My world shattered when my wife ran off with her boss in Reno, but I found a heartbreaking truth. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt thick, like the moment before a storm. My heart drummed in my chest, wild and frantic. I sat frozen in our kitchen, a coffee cup trembling in my hands, the dark liquid sloshing dangerously close to the edge. The silence felt deafening. I could hear my own breath's sharp, desperate gasps against the crushing weight of realization. Rachel had always been my anchor, my light in the darkest of storms, and now she was gone. The very thought twisted in my gut like a knife. It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday, but everything changed when she left that morning, a flurry of papers in her handsome project, she said. I didn't think anything of it. I believed her words, wrapping them around me like a safety net, but then my phone buzzed with a message that shattered my world into pieces. A photo popped up. Her smiling face, wrapped in another man's arms, laughter etched across their cheeks. My breath hitched. I scrolled, eyes wide in disbelief as I read the pithy caption below. Living my best life. I could feel my heart drop. The blood rushed to my ears, drowning out reality. Memories of our life together flooded my mind, the soft touch of her hand, the way her laughter would light up our tiny apartment. I could almost taste the familiar scent of her shampoo, still lingering in the air. I stumbled to the front door, barely registering the disheveled mess of my thoughts. I had to know. I had to understand why. Reno was glitzy and hypnotic, a place where dreams drifted and dissipated like smoke. Wasn't it just like her to chase some fleeting thrill? I felt the weight of betrayal smash into me like a freight train. How could she do this? What had he promised her that I couldn't? But the deeper I dug, the more strange details emerged. Whispers echoed in the corners of my mind. My brother's words lingered, "There's something off about that guy." I remembered the cold glances exchanged between them at family gatherings. The little things I had dismissed them as paranoia, but now they roared like sirens in my head. As I paced my apartment, each step heavy with doubt and questions, I overheard a muffled conversation through the thin walls. My neighbor was talking about a scheme, something shady about the company they worked for. I leaned closer, heart racing. It all unraveled in a matter of days. Everyone thought she was just a golden child, but she wasn't. The word sent shivers down my spine. Was Rachel tangled in something deeper? Something dangerous? As the shadows lengthened around me, I felt a sense of impending doom creeping in, mingling with my grief. Hope fought to rise in my chest. Maybe there was more to the story. Perhaps she wasn't just chasing a man. Then my phone buzzed. A text. I held my breath as I read it. Meet me where it all started. It felt like a jolt of electricity shooting through my veins. Could it be a chance? Would I finally uncover the truth lurking beneath the surface? Or was this just another tangled web of lies? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The twilight drew long shadows across the living room as I slipped into my car, the engine sputtering to life with a reluctant cough. The message blinked persistently on my phone, a beacon, both alluring and terrifying. Meet me where it all started. It was a direct invitation, yet I was suffocating in uncertainty. The location is familiar, marred by both sweet memories and the stinging betrayal that dulled each recollection. As I pulled away from the curb, thoughts spiraled relentlessly. Images of Rachel flashed through my mind, our first date at that little Italian bistro, the vibrant laughter shared over glasses of wine, the way her eyes illuminated with joy beneath the soft glow of string lights. But now, everything was inflected with this raw and jagged pain. What had I missed? Who had I allowed into our lives? I finally reached the spot, a quaint park where we once strolled hand in hand, its benches etched with the initials of lovebirds from seasons past. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, mirroring the turmoil in my heart. I stepped out of the car, my breath hitching as I scanned the area, searching for her familiar silhouette amidst the swaying trees, and then I saw her. Rachel stood uncertainly near our bench, looking smaller than I remembered, as if life had begun to consume her. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. This was the woman I loved, the woman who had shared her dreams with me. Yet, the distance between us now felt insurmountable. "Rachel," I managed to call out, my voice trembling slightly in the evening air. She turned, her face a mix of relief and fear, and I could see swirling emotions in her eyes: confusion, sadness, and perhaps a flicker of desire for reconciliation. "Jake," she replied, and even her voice seemed fragile, as if shattering with any wrong note. I didn't know if you would come. That I had to," I breathed, though my heart felt like lead. "I need to understand." "What happened?" She looked away, her gaze falling to the ground as if it held the answers. I've made a mistake. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." The sincerity in her tone tugged at my heart, igniting a mix of hope and rage within me. "Is that all you have to say? You left me for him, for your boss. Was it worth it?" The bitterness dripped from my words, but I knew I needed to hear the truth, no matter how deeply it could cut. "It's complicated," she whispered, eyes glistening with unshed tears. As she spoke, an overwhelming wave of sadness washed over me. What I did was reckless. I felt lost, like everything was falling apart, and I just wanted to feel alive again. "That be why hurting me?" I retorted, anger and anguish battling within me. "The company, there are things I found out. Things I didn't want to drag you into." Rachel's voice dropped to a hoarse whisper, a sense of urgency creeping into her tone. "Jake, it's not just about us anymore. Then what is it about?" I stepped closer, desperate for clarity. "You're scaring me, Rachel. What did you get yourself into?" The park was quiet around us, the evening air thick with palpable tension, each moment stretching into eternity. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, we both heard footsteps approaching, slow at first, then quickening in frequency. We turned simultaneously to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a man clad in a dark jacket, his face obscured. "Rachel!" he called, and his voice sent an icy chill down my spine. The familiarity of it struck me, a voice I had never quite trusted. I clenched my fists, muscles taut in protective anger. "Jake, you need to go," Rachel pleaded, urgency flashing in her eyes. "Why? Who is this guy?" I demanded, feeling the ground shift beneath me, the suffocating pressure of questions spiraling. But just as the man drew closer, a sinister realization washed over me, the panic etched on Rachel's face seeming to magnify under the gathering dusk. "You shouldn't be here," she urged, glancing at him and then back to me. In that very moment, everything spiraled out of control. The man's voice surged to meet the stillness, filled with a dangerous edge. "You thought you could leave, Rachel? You really thought you could escape?" I stood frozen, heart racing, as the pieces began to align into a horrifying puzzle. Whatever was happening here, whatever webs had entangled her, they were reaching out now, threatening to ensnare me as well. In the gut-wrenching silence that followed, the weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air. Once again, my world felt impossibly poised on the brink of catastrophe, with looming threats and unspoken truths swirling dangerously around us. The man's silhouette seemed to swallow the fading light as he advanced, a predator unmasking each layer of the night. My heart pulsed in my chest as I grappled with the confrontation unfolding in front of me. Fear twisted my stomach, entwined with a burgeoning sense of protectiveness for Rachel. "Jake, please." Rachel's voice, barely a whisper, pierced through the tension. Her eyes darted between me and the man, a silent plea laced with desperation. "I can explain everything. Just trust me." Trust. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. The very essence of our relationship had crumbled with her betrayal, yet here she was, asking me to believe in her again. I wanted to give in, wanted to step back into the warmth of her love. But the shadows of deceit were thick, stifling any flicker of hope. The man paused, a mocking smile sketching across his lips. Trust? You think that's what she needs right now? That your devotion could save her? His laughter rang hollow, cruel. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Jake. Enough. You don't have to be here, Rachel shouted suddenly, stepping forward, her eyes flashing with a spark of anger I hadn't seen in a while. I thought I was free. I was wrong to think so. Please, just let it go. The man took another ominous step toward her, and I couldn't bear it anymore. Instinct took over, driving me forward as I shoved between them, my body instinctively poised to shield her. You will not lay a hand on her, I declared, venom seeping into my voice. No, Jake. Rachel cried out, reaching for my arm, her touch grounding me momentarily. This isn't about you and me, not right now. It's bigger than that. Her words slashed through the air, and I felt the room start to spin. Bigger than us? What could possibly be bigger than our love, our commitment? I shot a glance back at the man, who now appeared amused, reveling in the chaos of our confrontation. Ah, the fear of losing her, he crooned, it's palpable in the air, but what she's tangled in goes beyond love. You think loyalty is a shield, but it's just a thin veil, one that's ready to tear. Rachel flinched at his words, and I saw the shadows cross her face, deepening the lines of anxiety. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice a mix of confusion and fury. You just don't get it, do you? He pressed on, stepping towards us with a feline grace. She made a choice, one that was thrust upon her. The choice was never about you or me, it was about survival. Survival? I echoed, feeling my heart race with a cocktail of worry and disbelief. What do you mean? Everything she's been doing at work, it's all connected. There are people who want to silence her, Jake, and not because of her decisions. Because she got too close. As the man spoke, Rachel's face went pale, as if the breath had been knocked from her lungs. That's not true. She protested weakly. I tried to escape, that's why I left. But he shook his head, a dark satisfaction playing across his features. Escape? The deeper you delve, the harder it'll get to break free. And they won't stop until they make their point. I felt the world spin around me. Rachel, what is he saying? What is going on? My heart pounded, a chaotic drum echoing the confusion swirling within me. That I can't tell you everything, not yet, she confessed, tears shimmering in her eyes as she looked down. But I promise it's not just about my failure. I wanted to protect you. Each word sliced through me, leaving wounds that ached with betrayal. You wanted to protect me? By abandoning me? By running off with the man who had taken advantage of you? No. You don't understand. I thought if I got closey, if I gained their trust, I might uncover something. Something that didn't sit right. Her voice trembled, yet the urgency was unmistakable. The man let out a soft laugh, devoid of warmth. And now it's all unraveling, isn't it? You thought your lies were a safety net, but instead, you've tangled yourself in a web you can't just exit. Panic surged through me, unfurling like a storm. What did you get yourself into, Rachel? The question slipped out barely above a whisper. She took a breath that seemed to siphon the air between us, her expression a bittersweet mixture of determination and despair. I'm in too deep. But if I tell you everything now, they'll come for you too. The weight of her words pressed down on me as realization dawned. It wasn't just our love at stake, it was something much larger, much darker. Suddenly, the man's phone buzzed in his pocket, shattering the precarious moment. He glanced down, and a glimmer of annoyance crossed his face. Time's up, Rachel. These games. They end now. He turned, casting one last scornful glance back at me. And let's hope you don't regret sticking around, Jake. The truth can be a heavy burden to bear. As he receded, dread settled heavily in my chest, squeezing out what little hope remained. I reached for Rachel, desperate for reassurance. Well, figure this out, I promised, though doubt crept into my voice, defiant against the shadow stretching ever closer, but her face was ashen. You don't understand, I can't let you get caught up in this. I thought I could handle it alone. Just then, a car engine roared violently to life in the distance, the vibrations echoing like a death knell. Her eyes widened with newfound fear. I don't think we have much time, Jake. With those words, the darkness around us seemed to close in, revealing how fragile the thread holding us together had become. My heart raced as urgency surged forward, quickly reshaping the night into an uncertain realm fraught with danger. Rachel, we need to leave now, I urged, glancing around as doubts about our safety pressed upon me like a heavy shroud, but as we turned to run, a flash of headlights flooded the park, illuminating a vehicle barreling in our direction. My breath caught in my throat as realization slammed into me. His wasn't over. Not yet. That I squeezed Rachel's hand in a silent promise, but as I looked into her eyes, I saw not just fear but the hint of a truth lurking beneath the surface, one that threatened to shatter everything I thought I knew about our love and the fight ahead. And just as the car skidded to a halt, a realization loomed dreadfully large. There were more players in this game than we could have ever imagined. The cold night air stung as I stood frozen, my grip tightening around Rachel's hand. The headlights from the car washed over us, illuminating the tense shadows of our situation. The vehicle's engine stuttered, and a figure emerged from the driver's seat, silhouetted against the glow. My heart raced and fear twisted like a knife in my gut. Who the hell is that? I asked, my voice choking on the weight of the unknown. Rachel's face drained of color. Jake, we can't stay here. We have to go, please. She pulled me back, urgency lacing her tone, but I couldn't shake off the sense of dread enveloping us. Before I could respond, the stranger shouted, Rachel. Get in the car. It was a woman, her voice raspy yet commanding, and though I had never laid eyes on her, something about her presence felt strangely familiar. The way she called Rachel's name sent fresh ice down my spine. It was a tone laced with concern, but also a quiet authority that hinted at a shared history I couldn't comprehend. Who are you? I shouted back, voice laced with protective anger. It seemed futile to reach for trust when every truth had been twisted in our lives. Just get in. We don't have much time, the woman snapped, frustration and fear colliding in her tone. Rachel hesitated, her expression flickering with something indecipherable before it hardened. She turned to me, terror in her eyes that made my heart clench tighter. It's okay, she whispered. She's with me. I promise she's going to help. The sincerity in her voice made the tension knot within me, but it didn't eradicate the shadows of doubt. Help how? What is happening? I pressed, desperation fueling my questions. We're running out of time, Jake, she insisted, her voice trembling slightly on the edges. The man from before is connected to something dangerous. I can't explain now, but she knows. Just trust me. The trust she asked for felt like a chasm to leap. It was a gamble that could send us tumbling into darkness again. But the urgency in her expression broke through my hesitation. I had already lost so much, leaving Rachel behind now wasn't an option. Let's go, I finally said, forcing myself to swallow the unease. I released her hand and headed for the passenger seat. The woman's sharp nod conveyed assurance buried beneath layers of uncertainty. Once inside, the headlights swept away the last remnants of our safety in the park and bathed everything in stark relief. The woman accelerated, the tires screeching against the pavement as she fled from that wretched place. But as we sped off, an unsettling weight hung in the air. I turned toward Rachel, her hands trembling in her lap, fear and resolve intertwined. You know her? I asked, unable to suppress the resentment hidden beneath my curiosity. She was trying to help me before, Rachel stammered, looking out the window as the city lights flickered past, illuminating her face. I hoped it would be different how? I pushed, needing to break through the invisible wall between us. She turned to meet my gaze, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The things I've been tangled in, Jake. They're more than personal failures. This is about people with power, with resources, people who won't stop until they've accomplished their goal. Her voice cracked, and I could see the heaviness of the secrets weighing on her. What goal? The question echoed, ominous and sharp. That's what I need her help for. We have to, but whatever she intended to say vanished the moment the stranger veered onto a dark, narrow road. I could barely see anything beyond the dashboard lights, panic clawing at my senses. In the dim glow, Rachel leaned closer, her breath hitching as she glanced warily into the rearview mirror. They might be following. A chill settled over me, thoughts racing. Who were they? Had the man from before dispatched others? But the woman driving seemed unaffected by the fear brewing inside the car, her gaze laser-focused on the road. Stay quiet, she instructed firmly, glancing back at us only for a moment. This is the quickest route, but I need to keep my eyes on the road. Just trust me, trust. The word echoed in my mind, its bitterness returning. It felt suffocating, laden with memories of empty promises and shattered faith. Yet as I looked at Rachel, her fear resonating with my own, I realized that it was the only choice I had left. As we sped deeper into the night, I began to formulate the pieces of Rachel's secret, a twisted puzzle with edges that were still blurred. We were trapped in a world that wanted her silenced, caught at the intersection of love and danger. But just as a flicker of hope sparked within me, the engine sputtered violently, sending a jolt of panic through my veins. What's happening? I shouted, seeing the worry paint the woman's face. Hang on. She yelled, steering the vehicle hard to one side as it lurched. The headlamps flickered ominously, and a troubling sound echoed from under the hood. As we skidded, I braced myself against the seat, the realization crashing down this wasn't over. As the car veered dangerously close to the edge of the road, I caught a glimpse of headlights approaching from the opposite direction, a glint of metal in the dark. My heart raced, and I turned just in time to see another car barreling toward us, its intentions unclear but darkly looming. In that moment, the weight of our decisions bore down on me, no longer a single thread of betrayal but rather a suffocating web of survival. My heart sank as it hit me. We weren't just fleeing an enemy, we were trying to navigate a path riddled with shadows, and I could lose everything in the blink of an eye. Before I could react, the woman's voice rose above the chaos. Hold on. And everything spiraled into uncertainty as the world outside turned into a storm of headlights, ominous sound, and my growing sense of dread. The screech of tires was deafening as the woman's car careened across the uneven road, the headlights dancing like erratic flames amidst the encroaching darkness. I clutched the armrest as my knuckles turned pale with fear, my pulse thrumming in sync with the thrumming engine struggling to hold on. Rachel's quickened breaths filled the cramped space, seeping into me with her panic. It was as if the very air around us had transformed into a thick fog of uncertainty. Turn this thing around. I shouted, my voice raw with urgency. We need to get away from. No, she barked, a flash of anger breaking through the anxiety. If we turn around, they'll catch us. I won't let that happen. The resolve in her voice cut through my mounting dread. She gripped the wheel, her knuckles pale. I couldn't understand how she was holding it together while the world was collapsing around us. What haunted the shadows beyond us that made her so determined? And then it hit me, a realization like a bolt of lightning. Rachel's past was entwined with this darkness. I saw it in the flickering lights of her memories that played across her face, smudged reflections of all the choices leading to this nightmare. Rachel, I whispered, you're not just running from something, are you? You're running towards it. Her eyes flared, filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. Frustration, perhaps. Jake, this isn't the time. I just need you to trust me. But trust felt like a shattered glass between us, its shards dug deep into the spaces of my heart. Trust? I echoed, shaking my head. You've known me to be cast aside, how can I place any faith in this woman you're relying on? Who is she really, more than you know? She sturdily declared, turning fully towards me for a fleeting second. More than I could ever explain right now. Her voice cracked with urgency and despair, and a lump formed in my throat seeing her so vulnerable, but to surrender to her words seemed like a form of personal betrayal. I wanted to believe she was striven for clarity, but every tug of her shared secrets made me feel like we were spiraling into a void, before I could retort, the car jolted, forcing our focus back to the road ahead, now littered with whispers of headlights flashing ominously in the distance. The impending confrontation loomed, a nebulous threat weaving through the shadows. Suddenly, the woman driving slammed on the brakes, the car veering dangerously to the left. "Get down, now!" she barked, and instinctively, I pushed Rachel's head down toward her lap, covering her with my body. The world erupted around us as an explosion of sound filled the air, a cacophony of shattering glass and metal crunching violently against metal. The blow hit us like a sledgehammer, and the car lurched, sending us sideways. My stomach turned as a hurricane of chaos enveloped us. When the world stopped, silence draped over the wreckage like a heavy shroud. I peered cautiously through the haze of dust that settled around us. Desperation surged through me. Were we still intact? Had we survived, Rachel? My voice cracked as I shifted slightly, wincing from the pain starting to throb in my shoulder. I searched for her, the shadows of doubt giving way to instinct, praying she hadn't been hurt. A tentative whimper broke the stillness, and I turned to see Rachel's gaze wide with fear, tears glistening in the soft glow from the dashboard, reflecting her broken spirit. I don't think they're coming after us anymore," she whispered shakily. "What do you mean?" My heart raced at the thought of our pursuers still lurking, waiting for the wreckage to resolve into an ending. The headlights went dark. "They must've seen our crash," she replied. There was a tremor in her voice that echoed my overwhelming fear. Was this our salvation or another grasping at faint hope? The driver, regaining her composure, gripped the wheel again and whispered, "We need to go." But before she could rumble the ignition, the radio crackled to life, a voice laced with authority slicing through the silence. "This is your last warning. Get out of the vehicle with your hands raised." Now, I felt my heart plummet. The air grew thick with dread, compressing our reality until I could barely breathe. We were trapped. How could we ever navigate this unseen menace? The weight of panic bubbled within me like boiling water, and I turned to Rachel, my face a mask of hopelessness. "This can't be how it ends, Rachel." "Not like this," she shook her head, her face pale in distress. "We have to think of something. We can't give in, we can't let them save it," the driver interrupted, her voice low but unwavering. She seemed to channel an internal storm as she reached into the glove compartment and withdrew a sleek object that reflected the dim light. A gun. Fear snaked its way through me, even as resolve tightened my chest. What are you going to do?" I stammered, horrified. "Fight." Her gaze was cold, but deep within, a flicker of something human glinted in her eyes. Desperation. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't malice. It was sheer determination, an echo of hope wrapped tightly around a quest for survival. "Is that really what this is about? Survival?" I croaked, grappling with my heart's desperate ache. Rachel leaned closer, her voice quaking but full of fiery resolution. "Jake, we may have lost everything, but we can't lose hope, not now." Before I could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps shattered the moment, heavy and foreboding, ripping through our fragile fabric of safety. "Whatever happens next, keep your head down," the woman said, priming her weapon as an ominous shadow loomed, crossing into our line of sight through the cracked window. But before I could implement any further thoughts, a sudden realization broke through the chaos spinning in my mind, a ghost of a truth fully unveiled. "You never told me who you are." Before she could respond, time seemed to freeze. The silhouette was now visible, and I froze, my heart clenching in disbelief. I recognized the figure striding confidently toward the car, a shadow rising from our past, and it felt as though the world around me collapsed into a void. That it was Himmy, wife's boss, the man whose web of deceit had ensnared us all. His presence loomed larger than life, more ominous than I ever imagined. The heavy footsteps echoed with each beat of my heart as fear morphed into something far more primal. "Rage, run as fast as you can," I shouted, panic transforming into a rallying cry. But just as the rush for survival surged through me, the truth seeped in with a terrifying chill. Hadn't just lost Rachel, I had unknowingly stepped into a nightmare crafted by shadows I never even understood. The headlights pierced the darkness like spears of dread, illuminating the face of the man who had once been a specter of prosperity, now standing before us as an avatar of terror. The air crackled with tension, a silent plea mingling with the acrid scent of smoke and fear that clung to the wrecked vehicle like a shroud. "Jake," Rachel's voice faltered as she grasped my arm, the heat of her skin a stark contrast to the chilled realization of our predicament. "You shouldn't be here. You don't know what he's capable of." His gaze flickered between us, a cruel smile punctuating the shadows beneath his eyes, and I could feel the world tilt dangerously on its axis. The hushed whispers of my thoughts grew louder. Could I trust the very source of the chaos now unfolding, or were we merely pawns in a game we had never chosen to play? "You didn't listen to your wife when she begged you to stay away," he said, his voice smooth and taunting, each word wrapped in a layer of condescension. "Yet here you are, drawn back into the storm like a moth to a flame." A surge of defiance pushed me forward, igniting a fierce resolve. "I'm not afraid of you. You're nothing but a coward hiding behind deceit." I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, the man before me, the woman beside me, or the fading echoes of my own shattered trust. But I sensed Rachel's fear intertwining with my defiance like a rope fraying at the edges. "Convenient bravado for a man whose life just crumbled," he replied, stepping closer, and I felt the weight of his malevolence pressing against me. "But you've already lost. An empty house, a betrayed heart. It leads to one conclusion." His words flayed open the raw wound of my heart, a festering reminder of the life stolen when my wife chose to unravel our world with a decision that echoed louder than any betrayal. "It'll make you pay," I barely croaked, though the tremor in my voice betrayed the frailty of my courage. Meanwhile, Rachel had withdrawn slightly, her eyes revealing a tempest of emotions, flickers of guilt mingling with the remnants of her defiance. "Please, let's just walk away from this." Her voice trembled, filled with an unspoken plea. "No," I urged, my gaze hardening as I channeled fear into an unsettling determination. "You can't let him manipulate you again. We need to stand together, no more lies." That, he laughed, a low, mocking sound that echoed against the metal carcass of the car. "Together? Oh, my dear boy, that ship has sailed. You're nothing but a memory to her now, a mere prelude to the greater story." Panic surged anew, coursing through my veins like ice, and I looked at Rachel, searching her eyes for a flicker of the bond we once shared, a tether to hope that felt, with each passing moment, more tenuous. "What did you tell him?" I demanded, my voice a low growl. "I didn't tell him anything." Rachel's voice cracked, desperation spilling over into certainty. "I'm here because I had to be. In trying to change my mistakes, change your mistakes." His derisive snicker cut through her defiance. "You think fleeing to the arms of your husband now is going to fix anything? You're deep in a pool of deceit. I've seen her secrets, Jake. People like us, we do not change." A shudder of despair leached through me, sowing seeds of doubt where trust had once flourished. "What does that even mean? Stop toying with her mind." I stepped forward, fueled by a warning impulse, his intimidation feeding my defiance, a protective instinct rising to the surface, but the certainty in his gaze only deepened. "You have no notion what your wife has been through. She's been playing chess with shadows, and you still think you can reclaim what you lost. She is bound to her choices like shackles, and every move she makes to escape them only tightens the grip." In that moment, time elongated, and chaos dwindled. I could feel the breath fading from my lungs, the enormity of our realities colliding, but behind the cloud of dread, a flicker of memory ignited, a time when Rachel's laughter painted our walls with warmth and her gentle touch soothed my fears, but the truth of our situation struck harder than any betrayal. We were standing at the brink of a precipice, where redemption seemed like a distant star. Our world was fracturing, and I found myself swallowing bitterness, the taste of anguish sharp on my tongue. As if sensing the shift, the man stepped back, his smirk widening, believing the mayhem had shifted in his favor. "Consider this your last chance, Jake. Let her go. Embrace the reality that you have lost." Before I could speak or even breathe, the driver whose gun hung heavy and cold had found her voice. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she said, her tone a fierce clawing through the air. "You think this is just a game for you? You may have orchestrated this chaos, but you've underestimated us all." The words hung suspended, electrifying the air, a sudden rush underlying our voices. A hand on my shoulder grounded me as Rachel whispered, we can turn this around. Despite teetering on the edge of despair, I began to feel an ember igniting again in my chest, a cautious hope wrapping around my heart that I won't give in, she added, determination resurfacing in her eyes. We will fight for each other, no matter what you think you own. He said, the smile on his face twisting as he took a step back. How quaint. So you think you can defy inevitability? Suddenly, faraway sirens flared to life, the wailing sound sliding closer, working through my head like steel claws. Rachel's hand gripped mine, her warmth leaching into me like a mantra, silent promise that maybe, just maybe, we could outmaneuver the approaching darkness. But then, just as it seemed that the tide might turn, he raised a finger, steely with resolve. Too late, he sneered. The quiet resolve settled around us like a cage, and I felt the bite of despair gnawing at my insides. The sirens were almost upon us, and in that breathless moment, I realized, there would be no escape without sacrifice, and we were on the edge of locked fate. Now, he said slowly, summoning an air of inevitability in his voice. Tell me where the document is, Rachel. Tell me where the real truth lies. And in that instant, a single question tattooed itself into the marrow of my bones as realization struck like a lightning bolt. The heart of her sacrifice might still be unfurling, and the truth she had buried could unravel all strands of our fates. Every choice she had made and every unbridled truth could lead us to either salvation or complete wreckage. With the sound of approaching chaos echoing behind, every moment paused, the reality unraveling like fragile thread, each of us caught between redemption and a fate woven by shadows. The sirens grew louder, a menacing herald that crept ever closer. My pulse raced, each beat matching the rhythm of impending chaos. Rachel clutched my hand, her grip trembling yet filled with a desperation that pulled at the edges of my heart. You don't have to tell him anything, I whispered fiercely, willing her to understand. The weight of potential betrayal hung in the air, and I could feel the unseen thread connecting us, fraying. We can face this together. She looked at me, her eyes swimming in an ocean of conflict, the struggle of wanting to shield me from her past while desperately wishing for a chance at redemption. I can't, Jake. If I don't, no one will be safe. His laughter broke the moment like glass shattering. Look at the loyalty bound by fear. It's almost poetic. But you see, Rachel, loyalty means little when the stakes are as high as mine. You know what's at risk now, don't you? His voice smoothed over her with venomous delight. I felt Rachel recoil slightly, her resolve wavering. I know what I'm risking, she said, her voice steadying as she pulled the courage from deep within. But I won't let you dictate my life any longer. I refuse to live in your shadow. Ah, brave words, he mocked, leaning closer, but bravery often gets people hurt in this game. And I know you, Rachel. You're driven by pity, by guilt, the very reasons you've been tied to me all along. The crack in her facade widened, and my heart clawed at the fragments of her trust. No. I said sharply, forcing her gaze back to mine, wielding all the love I could summon. You are not defined by what he's done. You have the strength to break free, just like we talked about. But she hesitated, the truth of her past filtering back into the room like a pallid fog, and I could see it in her eyes, the terror of what she'd have to confront. I wish it could just be that simple, she replied, voice barely more than a whisper, time's running out. He was relentless, his eyes brightening like a serpent lapping at impending prey. What do you say, Rachel? Save yourself and let us all move on. Just give me what I want. That I end that fraught moment, with the wail of sirens stretching like hands of fate ready to grasp us, something primal surged within me. No longer just an inconsequential part of this twisted narrative, I drew nearer to her, nudging her strength awake through the connection between us. No matter how dark it gets, we're in this together, I urged, my voice steady, anchoring ourselves against the tidal wave of despair. Tell him what we need to hear. We won't let him win. Just then, a flicker of defiance ignited in Rachel's eyes, barebones yet undeniable. She straightened, the fortitude threading through her whispered words. I will not allow you to dictate who I am or how I choose to fight. That it was a beautiful moment, so luminous against the foliage of our chaos. But as he laughed, a sound devoid of warmth or humanity, I squelched the rising surge of hope, knowing the depths of his darkness. He had always played for keeps. With a sudden flourish, he drew a device from his pocket, a metallic shard housing his treacherous intentions. Then consider this your death knell. I want the location of the document, or I will ensure every last secret you hold close fails to remain hidden. You think you can fight me? I will ruin everything you cherish. My stomach sank. I realized this was not merely about a document, it was about more than secrets. It was about the lives at stake, tangled together in a web spun by deceit and desire. But the rawness of Rachel's confrontation against this man illuminated her in a strange way, strengthening my burgeoning hope that maybe she could still find release from his manipulations. Enough! She screamed, her voice cracking through the tension like a whip. You think you can control me? I am not your pawn. I refuse to play. A general swell of energy crystallized around her, defiance mingling with vulnerability, and the oppressive atmosphere thickened. I could almost taste her fear, but buried deeper was a fierce resolve, a hope that burned brightly against the shadows that sought to claim her. Suddenly, the sirens escalated, and headlights pierced the darkness like a beacon. Reacting on instinct, I threw my arm around Rachel just as she broke. My heart raced as the realization crashed over me. They were close. Our rescuers stood at the gates of this living nightmare, shadows merging, ready to intervene, but I could see the glint of wicked pleasure in our adversary's gaze, and it dawned on me then the closer we got to salvation, the more desperate he would become. There was still a chance he could pull Rachel back into his orbit if we weren't careful. Stay strong, Rachel, I urged, sadness enveloping me as I caught the uncertainty returned in her gaze, the lines of her struggle carving deeper into her spirit. We're almost through. As the chaos swirled around us like a tempest, our adversary's smirk vanished. He heard the roar of approaching help, yet the battle wasn't over. His voice dropped, sharp and sinister. If you want to save her, you'll have to confront the truth you've both ignored. It might just cost you everything. And in that precarious moment, a dreadful realization crashed into my consciousness. There was a deeper truth buried beneath the surface, one that wasn't just about the document, but something far more personal, one I hadn't been aware of until now. I had thought my wife's betrayal had severed all our ties, but I was about to discover just how tightly we were still bound, more than I could ever imagine, and the devastating secrets that lingered, waiting to shatter us anew. The faint glow of headlights flickered through the trees, casting wild shadows that danced along the ground, seemingly taunting us with the promise of rescue. The siren's wailing felt like a lifebuoy in the tempest, and yet the iron grip of our adversary tightened around us, his presence a malevolent harbinger of dread. Rachel's eyes darted toward the vehicle, the light momentarily igniting something deep within her. It was hope, the kind that had been smothered for too long beneath layers of fear and regret. But could it remain untainted? I sensed a storm brewing beneath the surface. The truth awaited us, lurking with the certainty of evening shadows. Listen to me, I said, forcing her gaze to mine, my voice steady against the whirlwind. No matter what happens next, remember that you have strength. You've already faced so much, we've faced so much. Don't give him the power to take this moment from us. Her brow furrowed, but I saw the flicker of determination igniting anew in the depths of her irises, as if some unshakable foundation had returned in the face of adversity. I want to believe that, Jake. But the truth has a way of twisting everything, doesn't it? It lies just out of reach, waiting to sink its teeth into me again. His laughter echoed through the tension, a hollow sound without amusement. Oh, isn't that just delightful? Two little lambs standing against the wolf, still believing in fairy tales, he mocked, his voice smooth but dripping with malice. You really think your bravado can shield your secrets? Wouldn't it be a shame if everything you held precious slipped through your fingers like sand? The headlights grew brighter, illuminating his face in an eerie glow, revealing how utterly at ease he was in the midst of chaos. Behind him, the reality of her past rippled like a dark current, ready to pull her under. The fight inside Rachel seemed to flicker between defiance and despair as the shadows danced around us. Jake, she said, her voice small, fragile as a dust mote caught in light. What if he's right? What if this change has consequences I can't bear? In that moment, my heart clenched painfully. I had always wanted to shield her from the weight of her choices, but now those very choices threat to unravel everything around her. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and reached for her hand again, guided by an urge to connect us through the growing tempest surrounding us, that we have to face whatever it is together, I urged, squeezing her fingers tightly. Keep your focus on what we want, not on what we fear. A flicker of warmth broke through the cold tension as her eyes softened, a fleeting moment that held the promise of reconciliation. Yet, darkness lingered, as our adversary stepped back, a mere puppet master reveling in the unfolding drama. Every relationship has its strains, sweetheart. But be careful, like the waves of the tide, that strength can quicken when it feels threatened. I wonder how much truth you're really prepared to face when all is revealed. Remember that love isn't a shield, sometimes, it exposes your very core. With those words hanging in the air, the approaching sirens burst like a bombshell of sound, encroaching with relentless urgency. My heart raced, torn between the crucial moment that was unfolding and the truth that resonated painfully within me. I understood, perhaps better than anyone, how secrets could morph into something grotesque, swallowing whole relationships. Jake, our history isn't just my own, Rachel said, breaking my concentration. It was as if she were peering into the depth of my soul, unearthing remnants hidden away. What if the truths we cling to unravel us entirely? What if, in fighting against this darkness, we only discover a part of ourselves that isn't worth remembering? Her voice shook, threading new fear into the moments we had shared. I saw realization dawn upon her, a blend of fear, regret, and a yearning to break free from the shackles of the past. Yet, that undeniable truth weighed heavily on us both, formidable and looming over our dying light of hope. Don't think like that, Rachel, I urged, but there was a crack in my own voice. I too was afraid of the dark turns this journey might take us. We stand together or we fall apart. You know us. But her spirit wavered, caught somewhere between what had once been and the uncertainty of what was to come. I had fought so hard just to keep the flicker of hope alive, but the storm was far from over. Suddenly, a cry pierced the chaos, jolting us to attention. From within the shadows, a small figure emerged, a child barely old enough to speak, forming the edges of my consciousness. His anxious expression was somber yet familiar, though the moment stretched, my heart racing with the implications of what I might be witnessing. Mommy! He shouted, extending his arms with a mixture of desperation and love. My heart sank as a tide of realization washed over me. His child bore an impossible resemblance to Rachel. How could I have overlooked it? The truth hit like a thunderclap, shaking the foundation beneath us. If this baby had been the result of her betrayal, there was more to Rachel's story than I had ever known. Jake, Rachel's words fell into a chasm, the weight of two worlds colliding within her expression. As the lights finally drew closer, igniting the forest around us with a blinding brilliance, we stood on the cusp of revelation. Yet I felt the tidal wave of despair crash over us both, drowning out the hope we had fought so hard to protect. One question reverberated in the silence that followed: how much of our lives were built on lies? And was everything we believed about love strong enough to withstand the truth that now loomed over us like a harbinger of doom? The sirens waned as the headlights carved through the trees, yet in the aftermath of the revelation, the air remained thick with an unsettling mix of dread and disbelief. I stared at the child, the small body caught between us, a silent witness to the unraveling of our already tattered lives. His innocence was a stark contrast to the shadows that had come to define our existence, even as he wore a face that held so many echoes of Rachel. Mommy! He cried again, each plea sharper than the last, shaking Rachel from the paralysis that gripped her. She knelt down, her expression morphing from one of shock to one laced with a desperate urgency. Jonah? She whispered, the name spilling from her lips like a prayer, yet laced with a question: could this really be her son? She reached out, a hand trembling. The boy rushed forward into her embrace as if their bond were forged in a deep well of recognition rather than the shattering fear that now surrounded us. With one small gesture, the world that I thought I understood shattered like glass. Here was the embodiment of secrets, buried truths clawing their way to the surface with an intent that would unmake us all. Rachel, how? My voice trailed off, the enormity of the situation choking me. Jake, I can explain, she stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief. It was as if I were watching her unravel before me, threads of her life coming undone under the weight of revelations. Each heartbeat echoed the gravity of the situation, the sirens in the background no longer seemed so soothing. Explain. How do you explain this? I gestured toward Jonah, who had nestled into her arms. You have a child with someone else, her face crumpled as she hugged him tight, a flicker of fear running across her features. I never intended for this to happen. I didn't know until she paused, her voice breaking as she looked into Jonah's trusting eyes, the innocence of a child who had seen too much already. I didn't want to hurt you, Jake. Why anger clawed its way to the surface, but there was a pinprick of something deeper within mean ache that reverberated with each word she spoke. And what? You thought keeping him a secret would protect both of us? I swallowed hard, an unwelcome wave of hurt scraping against my throat. Before she could respond, our adversary stepped forward, his presence ominous. Well, isn't this a delightful family reunion? His voice dripped with sarcasm, delighting in the chaos unraveling before him. But what's a home without a little toxicity, Rachel's grip on Jonah tightened. Get away from us. Ah, sweet girl, I'm not here to hurt you. Not yet. He smirked, the kind of smile that promised misery. I simply want to remind you how those little secrets of yours have a way of catching up, especially when you think you've hidden them so well. As the sirens grew nearer, each wail sliced through the tension like a knife, but I was no longer thinking of our potential salvation. My thoughts veered in another direction entirely: how little we really knew about what lay in the shadows of our past. I felt unsettled, unmoored, realization hammering me down. Had Rachel understood the stakes when she concealed the truth, or had she slipped into deceit so casually, never considering the damage it would cause? Rachel, I said, my voice faltering. Do you even love him? Do you love us? Her gaze wavered, a tempest brewing in her heart as she wrestled with the shards of truth that had emerged. I didn't plan for any of this, Jake. When I met you, everything felt right. But I was running from my own choices, and Jonah's part of a life I thought I left behind. Behind her, Jonah played with the hem of her jacket, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing just beyond their embrace. A flicker of innocence caught in a world gripped by adult fears and unasked questions hung thick in the air. Running from your choices? I echoed, trying to keep the agony from spilling over. You kept a child from me, Rachel. A part of you. What else haven't you told me? The weight of my own accusation crashed against us, a palpable force that left us breathless. It felt as though our world was breaking apart, moment by moment, fracture by unbearable fracture. In a heartbeat, everything I had known about love and trust hung precariously in the balance, swaying as if searching for a new equilibrium. Suddenly, the headlights of the approaching vehicle were upon us, illuminating the darkened path leading to our tumultuous reunion. For a brief moment, they scattered the shadows like a beacon of hope, or perhaps a harbinger of more painful truths to come. Jake, Rachel whispered. We need to tell the truth before it's too late. But the moment she spoke those words, I was seized by a different realization, one that tightened a fist around my heart. Was the truth we were about to unveil strong enough to rebuild what had already begun to shatter? Or would it simply serve to drive a wedge deeper between us, opening old wounds we hadn't yet healed? And then, as if summoned by the fraught air, the unexpected arrival of a figure stumbled out from behind the trees. It was Matt, Rachel's old boss, the very source of our turmoil. He stood there, an ominous shadow falling across our fragile hope, and in his hands was a crumpled piece of paper. Looks like I've found what you've all been looking for, he said, a smug grin overtaking his features, wielding potential life-altering consequences wrapped within that single sheet. What did he have hidden within that paper, I wondered? And would it break us further apart, or perhaps, unveil yet another layer of our already complicated narrative? Everything seemed to spiral as I stared at Matt, the weight of his presence suffocating the air around us. My heart thudded fiercely in my chest, drumming a frantic rhythm that echoed the uncertainty enveloping our fragile reality. The truth he held in that crumpled piece of paper had the power to shatter everything we believed or weave together the fraying threads of our lives. Let's not pretend, shall we? He said, his voice dripping with a calculated edge. You think you can escape this mess? You're all tangled in it, whether you like it or not. Rachel clutched Jonah tighter, shielding him as if trying to protect him from the bitter truths liable to unravel beneath our feet. My stomach churned at the thought. Matt, this isn't just a game, she said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. You've manipulated enough lives to fill a gallery with pain. This ends now. Matt stepped closer, seeming to savor her words like a fine wine, his smirk widening. Oh, Rachel, sweet delusion. It's amusing, truly, watching you pretend you can control your fate. He looked over at me, and I felt the chill creeping up my spine. Or that your loyal husband will save you, shut up. I snapped, my heart racing, unwilling to let his twisted words sink in. You've already done enough damage. Suddenly, the headlights grew brighter, flooding the park, the wail of the approaching sirens cutting through the tension like a knife. They were closing in fast. With each heartbeat, the moment unraveled before us, the anticipation thick with uncertainty. Which will it be? Matt mocked, tilting his head, fingers drumming against the paper. Will you unveil your truth, Rachel? Or should I? My heart raced as her eyes darted from Matt to Jonah, the weight of the world bearing down on her shoulders. I felt an ache surge through my very being, a desperate need to protect her, this woman who had flayed open my heart, yet held remnants of my soul within her grasp. Rachel, I whispered, voice barely a breath, yet filled with raw urgency. No matter what it is, we face it together. You don't have to let him manipulate you like this. Her gaze shifted to mine, uncertainty a tempest swirling within. I saw flickers of longing, fear, betrayal and hope intertwined, an intricate web crafted by the choices that linked us together. But Jake, no buts, I interrupted, stepping closer, anchoring my strength into the moment, my heart hoping against hope. Everything is so tangled right now, but I know amidst the chaos, we can find our way back to each other. Just trust me, like I trust you. The shivers of doubt melted in her gaze as she searched for clarity. A flicker of resolve ignited within her. I can't keep running from the truth. Not anymore. The words hung in the stillness of the air, electric with both freedom and dread. It was as if a breath of fresh air swept through us, dispelling a fraction of the heaviness hanging in the atmosphere. And then it struck me, the crumpled document Matt held, the truth that had the potential to either bind us or tear us apart, was merely the prelude. I could feel the echoes of Rachel's previous secrets swirl around us, wrapping around her tightly. What is it, Rachel? I pressed. What is it he has? Before she could respond, Matt's voice surged through the moment, a taunting mantra pulling me deeper into the storm. You see, this little document may have everything to do with your boy, he began, lacing each word with menace. Or perhaps it holds your failures, the choices that question the very foundation of your love. Rachel tensed at his words, and the expression that crossed her face set my heart racing. What do you mean? She asked, her voice strained, the fragile threads of hope threatening to unravel. Oh, let's not pretend this isn't a soap opera, he laughed, each note filled with dark satisfaction. This document tells the story of choices made, secrets that could lead to an unraveling of all you've built. Lies big enough to collapse a foundation, Rachel. Think of the weight of the truth you've buried. No, I breathed, panic flushing through my veins, but my words were lost amidst the whirlwind chaos around us. Run all you want, he said, tilting his head as if conjuring sympathy. But it'll all come crashing down when the truth stands in the light. You can't hide forever. Perhaps you don't understand how love works, Rachel declared, and amidst the tension, I felt a flicker of courage blossom within her. Love isn't shielded from truth, rather, love grows more profound through it. The longer we hide in shadows, the greater the fear that molds us. In that moment, I sensed a shift, a pivotal moment cloaked in both fear and hope, where all of us stood on the precipice of knowing that the truth could either fracture us or weave us back together. Are you finally ready to join me in accepting it, Rachel? Matt asked, his voice a sinister drawl. Rachel nodded, determination flickering in her eyes as if she had wrestled every whisper of doubt into submission. "Yes, let's end this." She stepped closer to me, her warmth radiating like a beacon in the darkness wrapping around us. This was a moment where we had the chance to unveil ourselves and fight together, not as broken parts but as a united force that could withstand any adversary. "I love you," she whispered, pouring her heart into those 3 words, and just like that, everything shifted. Beneath the chaos surrounding us, the sirens crescendoing like an anthem of resilience, I felt something deepen between us and anchor against the storm. All that had transpired unraveled in single breaths as I locked eyes with Matt and said, "No matter how many shadows loom over us, we'll face them all." Together, I added, hoping against hope that maybe this was the way back to each other. Matt's laughter rang out in spite of the growing Tenziona specter in the night, thriving on the chaos we had carefully crafted for ourselves. "Let's see how strong you are when faced with what comes next," he sneered, raising the crumpled paper. Yet even amidst the impending storm, I had tasted a deeper truth: the potential for forgiveness, reconciliation, and love, all blurring the lines of betrayal. When it came down to it, love was a choice, one we would face regardless of the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. The realization washed over me like a wave. Our beacon of strength and our little boy stood before us, representing everything worth fighting for. As the lights from the approaching vehicle illuminated the ground, I sensed that the storm had finally unraveled, revealing a path where the love we once carried could rise again amid the chaos. The darkness may have whispered treachery, but it couldn't extinguish the flame of us. In that tense silence, I gripped Rachel's hand, firmly anchoring myself as the sirens rang out a powerful Prisia call to let go of the past and embrace the future, and when Matt finally revealed the contents of the paper, all I could think of was that hope flickered brilliantly within both of us, and despite everything, it was still possible to believe in the possibility of tomorrow, because although the truth might cut deep, love had the power to mend, and together, we would uncover a way to transform our fractures into the tools of our salvation. Side by side, we stood in the face of uncertainty, ready to face whatever came next, guided by the unwavering truth of our love, the kind that illuminates even the darkest paths and offers the warm embrace of hope where it's needed most. "Let's rewrite our story," I whispered, looking into her eyes. And for the first time, I felt like we could finally begin to heal. In the end, together we faced the storm and stood resolutely against the darkness, knowing that forgiveness and the unwavering belief in one another could carve a path for love to flourish once more.